Guys, so in the last video we have talked about how the file structure of a simple Express.js app looks like and what each of the folders designate. So today we'll be right now in this video we'll be talking about the models folder, like what what kind of app we're trying to build and how the database would look like for that. All right, so the first thing you would have to do is open your open your RoboMongo and ensure that you have your connection to your local Mongo. So you just basically create a new connection and you just write something like local connection, and then your address should be localhost, which is fine, and the port should be 27017. All right, and also make sure that RoboMongo won't connect to anything unless and until you have your MongoD connected as well. Like your MongoD is connected in the shell. So this basically opens your MongoD shell, like runs it, starts the MongoD server, and mine is already on. That's why it's like giving me this shutting down now, exiting, because it's already on. So that's how you basically run your MongoD server. Sudo MongoD. You could just write MongoD, but for me, I don't have root access, so I had to write sudo, which is basically giving me the root access. All right, so also we need to install some few stuff in our app before we start working with our database. So npm install mongoose. So mongoose is the language that the ORM for MongoDB in Node.js. So we have to install that in our app so that it's added as a dependency. Now at the end we write --save -dev to signify that it will be added to the package.json automatically and we won't have to manually write it down. So as you can see in the package.json, in the dev dependencies scope, you have mongoose added. Now I also, if you notice that whenever you start npm and whenever you make changes to the code, you don't get the changes immediately. For example, this is the user's page. So let me just write something. Respond with a user list, for example. So I saved it. Now let's refresh. Now you still see respond with the resource, which is your old data that was there. So you would have to basically stop the server, start it again, and then you would see your new change, respond with a user list. Now this is really, I don't personally like this. So what you could do is you could use this package called npm package called nodemon, and this would basically start whenever you start your server and you make changes in between, you could see the changes immediately. You won't have to restart your server again and again. So yeah, you have nodemon installed and you have mongoose installed, and yeah, so now you could just run your app via nodemon. And let's make a change to ensure. So user list blah, just writing it down. And then when you refresh, you see I didn't have to restart the server. It automatically detected the changes and it just updated it as is. All right, so as I was talking that we would be moving on to making a schema model for our app. Now, as I said before, this would be a post app, like post as in a blog. So you make posts, you just write posts, you make a blog post like every day or whatever. So the posts will have a schema. Like in a simple blog, you would basically just create posts, get posts, see all the posts, and update or remove the post. Like these are like the basic functionalities of a blog. So keeping that in mind, I'm creating a post directory which would hold my post schema. Now I could directly write posts.js, but I basically prefer this convention where you have the folder, and inside the folder you have the index.js. So if you just write posts, it would basically point to your index.js file inside the posts, right? So you would know why this is important and why this is useful as we move on further. So the first thing we will have to do is require the mongoose module. The mongoose module, which is the database module. So require mongoose. then you would have to require Mongoose's schema module. Now, how am I knowing all this? How am I knowing what to include and stuff? So you just have to go to the Mongoose documentation, and then you can play around with like how to use Mongoose in your Node app, how to initialize and how to create, how to connect to your database and create a schema, and all these details are over here basically. So read on the documentation and you'll find out more and more details on Mongoose. So I'm also importing mongoose.schema for building a schema of a post app. And yeah, so let's create our post schema, and it creates a new instance of a post schema, right? So we have in a post, what would you basically have? You would have a title, which would be a string type. You would have a body, which would be the description of the post, so it would also be a string. And you would have the published date or the created at date, and you would have the object would be of a type date, and the default value will be the current date, so date done now. And then you have an author, so you have, which would be a string type. You would have, I'm just creating a basic schema, so you can just add on and whatever you need, according to your requirements and stuff. So you would have a published, this is what I would think that should have, like a post schema should have. Like suppose you're writing a post and now you don't want to publish it like immediately, you want to maybe probably edit it and keep it saved somewhere. So when the type, which is, it's of a type boolean, so if it's set to true, then that means you published it. So yeah, so and the default value would be false. That means you don't want it to be published. You want to keep on editing and adding stuff later on. Think of it like a WordPress blog, where you make in WordPress you create blog posts. So think of it like that. These are just coming off the bat, and you would have some meta tag, which would be maybe likes of a post. So it could be a number. Yeah. So this is like the basic structure. You could add on more to it according to your requirements. And the last step is to expose the schema so that it can be like it can be imported wherever required. So for exporting, we use module.exports equals mongoose.model post. Like I want the model to be named post, and what I'm importing is the post schema. Alright, so module.exports is required whenever you want to expose anything you wrote, any function, any object, any variable you wrote in a file, so that it could be accessible from anywhere after you, like, of course, import it. Of course, when you import it, it can be accessible from anywhere via this line module.export. So you're exporting this model so that I could access it from anywhere I want to after, of course, importing it. Alright, so we created a basic schema, and now let's create our database. So after connecting to the local database, I already have a local Mongo, so let's just disconnect this. I'm gonna create a new database from this app, so I'm just gonna create a database from RoboMongo. So this is a mean app DB. Alright, so I created a database, and then I would use it, I would connect to it later on. It doesn't have any collections. So basically in MongoDB, you have collections, which are basically like tables. So you have a database, which is the mean app DB, and you have collection, which are like a table, or yeah, so post is a collection. Post is one collection, so it's basically like a table, and of course it will be in a NoSQL format, like it will be like a JSON object, not like how you see in MySQL, which is basically in a table format. And you would basically just have all these properties in that post table, in that post object, right? So what we could do right now is write an initialize function to connect to our database. So where am I? In app.js. Now this looks really ugly because of all these comments. Let me just remove some. Alright, so basically what we want is we want to connect to our database. So let's write an initialize function. Like whenever your app is started. Oh, and basically you also have to set up which environment you're in. So I'm also going to show you how to write tests. So you would also have a test environment. So basically right now we are using the development environment. So process.env.node underscore env equals development. So I'm in the development stage. Right, so in the development stage, I want my database to be different. So in the next video, I'll be showing you how to connect to database and how to create separate database for your test and for your normal development stage app. So give a thumbs up if you thought this video was helpful and if you like this series, and good luck.